Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the library for bringing me back, and thank you all for being here. I do appreciate it. When I was a kid growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, I just moved to New England 3 months ago because I always wanted to live in New England, and there were some other reasons I moved here. So I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. I spent my whole life in Cleveland, Ohio, basically. And when I was growing up, I was such a huge sports fan that I used to actually cry when my Cleveland Indians lost in the 1960s. I used to cry when they lost. And believe me, that's a lot of crying because that team wasn't very good. And I remember my dad took me aside one day and he said, Marty, you know, there's a lot of other things in this world to be crying about than the outcome of an Indians game, but I blame my father for this because he was the one that turned me on to, he was the one that made me a big sports fan. And my brother Bobby there, you guys made me a big sports fan, and so, I guess I overreacted on occasion. But as far as like football was concerned, I actually uttered the stupidest thing, Bobby might know what I'm talking about, the stupidest thing anyone has ever said in the world at a Browns game. I was about 9 years old, and I was at a Browns game, 85,000 people there. I went with Bobby and my dad. And I said to my dad, I said, Dad, how many people you think are here, not including us? Which when you think about is really, and my father gave me this look like, I can't believe I helped give birth to this child. And he said something along the lines, well, that would be 84,997. But anyway, I don't, when back in the 60s, there was no like ESPN, it wasn't really, sports was not national from a local standpoint. People didn't really follow, we were fans of the team. Everyone was a fan of the team of that city. That's just the way it was. So I didn't really, think too much about the Patriots. I was just too into the Browns. Nowadays, kids are fans, kids in New England could be fans of the San Francisco 49ers, or kids in Cleveland could be fans of the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just the way it is. It's kind of sad. I wish it was like the old days when kids were just fans of that team in their cities, but it's just not that way anymore. But I didn't think much about the Patriots. The one thing I do remember about the Patriots, the first year of the merger, the NFL merger, the Browns were surprisingly only in second place going into the last day of the season. And the first place Cincinnati Bengals were playing the Patriots. And the Patriots had only won one game all year. And there was a headline in the paper that said, "Come on, Patriots." And of course, the Patriots got creamed that game and ended up, I think, 1-13 that year. But they've improved quite a bit since then, especially when a gentleman named Tom Brady took over at quarterback. But anyway, a little bit about me, and then we'll get started. When I was in high school in Cleveland, I kind of put 2 and 2 together, which I could do by the time I was in high school. And I loved to write, and I loved sports, and I decided, I'll be a sports writer. I didn't give it much thought, I just went out to Ohio University, which had this great sports journalism program. And by the way, the sports editor that I had at the newspaper in New England, at Ohio U, was a guy named Peter King. Do you know who Peter King is? He's from New England, and he's one of the foremost NFL writers in the country, worked for Sports Illustrated. He was my sports editor at Ohio U. But anyway, I graduated after 16 years, and no, it was really 4 years, and I think another semester I finally got out, and I became a sports writer in Cleveland for 17 years, from 1985 to 2002, covered a lot of Major League Baseball, covered a lot of NFL, and I quit in 2002 because you could see with the internet coming in that the newspaper business was going to start to tank, and I quit the newspaper business, and ever since then, all I do is my job is I lie in my bed and I write books. That's my job. And then I come out and do programs for wonderful people like you. There was one exception. From 2009 to 2012, I hooked up with CBSSports.com, and I started to cover the Cleveland Browns, as opposed to a football team. It was brutal. It was like the movie Groundhog Day. The guy wakes up, he's in the same day. That's what it was like covering the Browns for 4 seasons then. It was like 4 different seasons, but it was really like the same season every time, you know. They were 4-12, they were 5-11, 4-12, 5-11. While you folks were enjoying watching Tom Brady win Super Bowls and the playoffs and all these exciting, you know, regular season games with Tom Brady, pity me, because I had to cover the Cleveland Browns for 4 years. It was very sad. Anyway, the Browns actually are one of only 2 established long-term NFL teams that have never been to a Super Bowl. The Detroit Lions are the other, and the Browns, so it's pretty bad. But anyway, CBS ended their experiment with teams, with individuals covering NFL teams, so I lost that gig in 2012. I started writing, they kept me on as a fantasy baseball and football writer. I started giving fantasy baseball and football advice, and that ended, and so I'm going to start this program right now. Anyway, and like I say, this is only the second time I've done this program, so I kind of use a script. You'll have to pardon me for that, but it's kind of hard to believe that Boston didn't have an NFL team or a pro football team up until 1960 when the AFL was born, but they didn't. And what happened was the 1958 NFL championship game between the Baltimore Colts and Johnny Unitas and the New York Giants was such a big deal. It was nationally televised. It went into sudden death, and it got a lot of attention. And NFL that was really when the NFL, the popularity, the big popularity of the NFL was born, that championship game. And so a lot of wealthy people decided, you know what, I think there's room for another league. And the American Football League, was born in 1960. And here's a little video about I believe this is the first game the Patriots played in 1960, or a little bit about that year for the Boston Patriots. They were not called the New England Patriots yet.
The myriad tasks of putting a new team into shape began. Training, practice, exhibition games. The important problem of a home field was solved through the cooperation of the city of Boston and Boston University. And a permanent place to practice in the historic town of Concord. The sports public was enthusiastic. The press, too.
Okay. That's surprising. Sorry about that. I don't know why that got cut off. Let me try that again.
Assembled, and the myriad tasks of putting a new team into shape began. Training, executive Paul Sullivan, Andrew L. Turner of the 7-Up Corporation, George L. Sargent of Dover, Edward McMahon from Down, Maine, from Easton, Massachusetts, John S. Ames, Jr., the director, William Kimball, Daniel F. Marr, a former Braves backer, and William Sutton.
Well, I'll have to look at that one again. I apologize for that. I'm just, like I say, the second time I've done this. Now, very early in the history of the Boston Patriots, a very strange thing happened at a ball game. And I just had to include this because it was so weird. The game was practically over. There was only time for one more play. And apparently the fans thought the game was over, and a fan actually rushed onto the field with the game still on the line and batted away a pass. And you'll see this here. This is Hank Stram of the Kansas City Chiefs talking about what happened there.
And we got time left for one play. We call a slant pass to Chris Burford. Burford is wide open, but suddenly something hits the ball and it flies out of the end zone and he completely loses the ball game. Cotton Davidson after the game, he comes over to me, very dejected. He said, "Coach, a guy in a khaki jacket knocked that ball." We get the films the next day, and sure enough, when the ball was snapped, a guy bounced across like a ballet dancer, reached up, tipped the ball, and that was it. I said, "Geez, I wish we could have run out of that last. That was the best defensive play we saw all year long to be running the football."
Okay, let me give you your first trivia question of the night.
No one knew when they might
Here we go. Okay, let me give you your first trivia question. Who coached the Patriots to 4 winning seasons from 1965 to 1961 to 65 before faltering? What was his name?
Mike Holloway.
Very good, Mike Holloway. Very good. Okay, you guys are 1 for 1 on trivia. Now, the Patriots actually were pretty good for a while. And the first, like I say, the first 5 or 6 years they were pretty good, but then they really faltered toward the latter half of the AFL run. But their early offensive years, their stars were a quarterback named Babe Parilli, and he was a 2-time Pro Bowler with the team, and he was a real prolific passer. He kind of personified that wide open style that the AFL was trying to promote. You know, the NFL was more of a grinded out kind of style with a lot more running plays than passing plays. But the AFL tried to promote a more wide open style. And Babe Parilli, he actually threw for 3,500 yards in 1964, but he also threw a lot of interceptions, which was a problem. But anyway, their best all-around player was Gino Cappelletti, who was a Hall of Famer. He was a kicker, and he was just a wonderful player. I mean, he was just super productive during that time with the Patriots. And here's a little more about the great Gino Cappelletti.
The 1960s formed the foundation for this organization, provided the building blocks from which it grew. It was a different time, a different era, a different game. But the players from that era should never be forgotten because they started it. They should never be forgotten for the contributions they made to this great franchise. Number 20 in your program, number 1 in our hearts, Gino Cappelletti.
Wide receiver and kicker Gino Cappelletti was one of the original members of the Boston Patriots and spent his entire 11-year career with the team. He is one of only 3 players who played in every game in the 10-year history of the American Football League. In 1964, he earned league MVP honors.
I am so proud to be part of all the guys who represented the American Football League.
He led the American Football League in scoring for its first 10 years. He scored 147 points in 1961 and surpassed that with 155 in 1964. The totals remained the 2 highest single-season scoring records in both AFL and franchise history. Cappelletti finished as the AFL's all-time leader with 1,100 points and 170 field goals. He led the AFL in scoring 5 times and was a 5-time AFL All-Star. This multi-talented player also ranks 10th on the Patriots' all-time receiving list.
Okay. Now, I misspoke. Obviously, I was going to say is that a lot of people think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's not in the Hall of Fame. And really, players that played exclusively in the AFL, unless they were, super standouts or on championship-level teams, which the Patriots were not most of that time, got short shrift when it comes to the NFL, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And Cappelletti's not in, which is kind of sad. But anyway, after Parilli was gone and really did throw a lot of interceptions, he was very, very inconsistent. The Patriots were trying to find their franchise quarterback, and that's going on with every team in the NFL even today. You got to have your franchise quarterback, and they finally drafted one, the guy they thought was going to be a Hall of Fame, a franchise quarterback, a great quarterback in Jim Plunkett. In the early 70s, and the problem was in 1971, he was just not ready to take over that mantle, and he was very, very inconsistent for several years, and they didn't get much out of Jim Plunkett until the NFL didn't get much out of Jim Plunkett until he was gone, and then he ended up leading the Oakland Raiders to 2 NFL championships, but he was not that great with New England. But anyway, here is kind of the moment that everyone was waiting for after Plunkett was drafted number 1 overall when he made his debut with the Patriots. And by that time, of course, they're the New England Patriots and no longer the Boston Patriots.
A quickie to Ron Sellers was good for 8 yards. A third of the Patriots' total first half yards. On the very next play, spark plug Harpo Gladio banged through for a 9-yard pickup, and suddenly the crowd of over 55,000 had hopes. From the Raider 33, Ron Sellers beat Nehemiah Wilson. Plunkett laid the ball in his arms at the 3, and it happened. The New England Patriots were leading the AFC West Division champions 7-6, a fact that must have shocked even the most die-hard fan. And they were just beginning. Moments later, Plunkett faked to Gladio and connected with his Stanford teammate Randy Fataha, who hauled it in for a 39-yard gainer to the Oakland 27. Plunkett, who called his own game for the most part, completely fooled the Raider defense on 3rd down with this toss to Roland Moss all alone and in for the touchdown. Stands went wild, and it was still the 3rd quarter when the Patriots 8 points ahead of Oakland. The second half turnabout was just amazing. Carl Garrett, who'd been plus 2 yards in the first half, wound up the game's leading rusher with a 78-yard total, 37 of them on this scoot. Beautiful. Bob Gladio ran for almost 50 total yards, all of them in the second half. Charlie Gobelak hit a pair of field goals, a 46-yarder, and this one from 22 yards out to wind up the scoring. They done it. The Patriots had beaten the Oakland Raiders 20-6, and everyone had a right to feel proud. The Pats gained over 10 times as much yardage in the second half as they had in the first.
Okay. Didn't always work out, though, especially for Plunkett and the Patriots during that period of time. Let me give you another trivia question here.
Rookie to Ron Sellers was good for...
There we go. Let me give you another trivia question here. Sam Bam Cunningham. You all remember Sam Bam Cunningham. He was a burly back. He very physical back. He led the 1976 Patriots in rushing. But another back, who you might remember, he had 699 yards rushing that year, and he caught more passes than anyone on the team, and he also had 10 total touchdowns. What was the name of that running back who complimented Sam Bam Cunningham so well?
Matt Cherry?
What's that?
Matt Cherry?
No?
Mac. It's Mac.
No.
No?
He has a very plain name. This is a tough one. This is probably my toughest trivia question, so don't feel bad if you don't get it. His name was Andy Johnson. Andy Johnson. Okay. Now, the Patriots were 3-11 in 1975, and no one expected anything from them. But I want to talk a little bit about that 1976 season that I just mentioned in a little bit. Offensive linemen just live in anonymity in the NFL. I mean, it's been that way forever, unless you really have some kind of huge breakthrough and you're so incredibly talented and so effective, like Anthony Munoz of the Cincinnati Bengals, that you make a name for yourself. But before Anthony Munoz, and maybe even after Anthony Munoz, the greatest offensive lineman in football played for the Patriots. His name was John Hanna. And I'm going to show some highlights of John Hanna because he was so respected among the NFL, and he was really had a big name for himself back then, which is rare for an offensive lineman, obviously.
The opening pages of John Hanna's pro football storybook career began in the small New England town of Foxborough, Massachusetts. Drafted first by New England in 1973, the 6'3", 265-pound offensive lineman was determined to remove any doubt, as well as any obstacle, that he would become one of the greatest to ever play the position. Comfortable in offensive guard. Hanna's aggressive run blocking became his hallmark. This style of attacking the defense from the line position became infectious as Hanna and other members of the offensive line powered through the NFL's defensive opposition, setting a pro football record in 1978 for most yards rushing by one team in a season. Seasons. John Hanna played the fall classics under the autumn skies of New England, becoming the prototype for the position of offensive guard. Throughout his career, Hanna was recognized as one of the game's greatest by his peers, as testimony to his selection to the Pro Bowl 9 times, and is being voted the NFL's Player Association Best Offensive Lineman from 1978 through 1981. The crowning achievement of the 1978 and 1980 recipient of the Seagram Sevens Crown of Sports Offensive Lineman of the Year award came in the 1985 AFC Championship game, where he led a ground assault on the defending AFC champion Miami Dolphins, as the Patriots won their first AFC title 32-14. Ladies and gentlemen, the first member of the New England Patriots to be inducted at Canton, Ohio, John Hanna.
The importance of offensive linemen to the success of any offense is so underrated and sometimes forgotten, because you can have a back, a Jim Brown or an O.J. Simpson or Eric Dickerson or whatever, and they just cannot be effective without great run blocking. And all of those, the great running backs of all time, have had really good offensive linemen opening holes for them. And the great quarterbacks of all time don't stay on the ground and don't stay healthy without great protectors. So anyway, now I want to talk about 1976, because it was really an amazing season. The Patriots were 3-11 the year before and ended up winning 11 out of 14 games and going to the playoffs against the Raiders. And they really, really got screwed here. This was 1976, and they were about to beat the Raiders when the referee kind of stepped in and made a horrible call that allowed the Raiders to keep the ball and score the winning touchdown. This still sticks in the craw of a lot of Patriots fans, even 47 years later.
Number 7 most controversial call of all time. The 1976 AFC wild card.
The nation was celebrating its 200th birthday. Apparently, it was a good year to be a Patriot.
When I came here, the Patriots weren't a part of the Boston community. We were down the road and an afterthought. It was the Celtics, the Red Sox, and the Bruins that people talked about all the time.
Rarely a contender, the Patriots were a playoff team in 1976.
That was a team that went from 3-11 to 11-3. It was an exciting team to be a fan of. It captured your imagination. They were the best team in football, and they got screwed. The Patriots handed the Raiders their head earlier that season.
They had a good team. They beat us pretty good. They didn't manhandle us, We were glad that we got a chance to play them again.
New England was in position to hand Oakland its second loss of the year. With less than 2 minutes remaining, Raiders quarterback Ken Stabler threw incomplete on 3rd and 18, but the Raiders were thrown a life preserver.
Goes incomplete on our sideline, and then we see the flag. And then they call the roughing the passer. And I look at the replay and I said, you gotta be kidding me.
Defensive lineman Ray Sugar Bear Hamilton, number 71, was flagged for our number 7 controversial call.
There's just no way to get around it to me. That was a terrible call. It changed the whole game.
I just figured that somebody had held one of our guys. I just knew that's what it was. It couldn't have been anything else. I was totally shocked. It was just a phantom, bogus call.
Right? Don't come hit the quarterback out and he threw the ball.
days? No. But did it happen? Yes. Was I happy? Yes. Or we don't go to the Super Bowl.
With the Ray Hamilton penalty, we kind of lost our composure, and they easily walked down the field.
You know, they probably had a good right beating us that day.
It kicked off a 20-year era of dysfunction that could stand up against anybody's.
That team didn't get back to a game that put them in position to go to the Super Bowl until 1985. That opportunity, that window of opportunity was there in 76, slammed shut, still difficult to live with.
Now, Ray Hamilton, you know, all he was trying to do was block that pass. And he had already been gotten so close to the quarterback, there was no way before he threw that ball, before the quarterback threw the ball, he could have halted his momentum anyway. That's a call that maybe you might see today because they're trying to protect quarterbacks so much. Although I don't even think today that most referees would have made that call. And back then it was unheard of to do that. But anyway, that's just the way NFL is sometimes. It's not always fair. Let me give you your next trivia question. And here it is. Who led the Patriots in receiving every year but one from 1980 to 1988, and 3 times led the NFL in yards per catch? Stanley Morgan, there you go. Good job, Stanley Morgan. Well done. Okay, we talk about how football is a tough game, sometimes psychologically, but of course also physically. And this was the most well-known brutal hit in the history of the NFL, and it left Darryl Stingley, a very young and talented receiver with a lot of potential, in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. The Oakland Raiders had a hard-hitting safety named Jack Tatum, and he was known for just blasting people. And that is, you know, it's legal. I mean, hard-hitting is legal. But what he did in an exhibition game, no less, is still remembered with horror among Patriots fans and really all NFL fans. It's kind of, it was just a terrible blow, even though it was legal and not penalized, I don't believe.
On August 12, 1978, Tatum delivered the hit that would make him infamous during a preseason game against the Patriots.
It was a play that you make 1,000 times in a game or during the season, and you hit a guy, and you always expect him to get up. And Stingley just didn't get up.
Tatum's hit turned Stingley, a budding star wide receiver, into a quadriplegic. Even though no flags were thrown on the play and no fines were levied against Tatum, his motives were questioned because of his reputation and apparent lack of remorse.
The night actually that it happened, in the locker room after, and Tatum was sitting there smoking a cigarette, and Patton came over and leaned in and said, "You all right?" Now, I'll never forget, he took the cigarette out of his mouth and he looked at me and said, "Why wouldn't I be?"
Did you ever apologize to Darryl Stingley?
No, I didn't. And I will tell you why. I apologize because Darryl got hurt, and I'm sorry he got hurt. But I will never apologize for the way I play football. That just won't happen.
If you want to argue that Jack Tatum's intent was to hurt you, yeah, it was. If you want to say his intent was to knock you out of the game, yeah, it was. Now, if you're going to tell me his intention was to put you in a wheelchair, that's a lie.
Despite the debilitating injury to Stingley, Tatum did not speak to him or contact him in any way. Tatum says he was told that Stingley did not want to hear from him. The two have never spoken in the 27 years since the injury.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about Steve Grogan, because really, a lot of people believe that Steve Grogan was the best quarterback the Patriots ever had until Tom Brady came along. And that might be true. And Grogan in that 76 season, he actually totaled 30 touchdowns, which isn't a whole lot today, but it certainly was back then. He combined for 30 touchdowns rushing and passing, and he was a great running quarterback, which was sort of rare. It had become less rare by the 70s and 80s, but he was a great running quarterback as well. And he was fearless, and he liked to mix it up. He didn't mind getting hit, which quarterbacks today are so too valuable, and they're told just you slide when you're about to get hit. Steve Grogan didn't do that. And here's a little bit about some highlights of Steve Grogan during his career. He, like a lot of quarterbacks that Patriots have had in their early years, he threw a lot of interceptions too, which cost him.
Few took notice when Steve Grogan joined the New England Patriots in 1975. But by the end of the 76 season, the unheralded fifth-round pick had become the talk of the league.
He had no regard for his personal safety because when he dropped back in the pocket, he would run and he wouldn't go down.
Steve Grogan was Steve Young in 1975, 1976. A quarterback could throw the ball, but you also have to be very, very aware defensively of his great ability to run and the fact that he was fearless.
Unlike most scramblers, Grogan ran by design. His 12 rushing touchdowns in 1976 set a league record for quarterbacks and led the surprising Patriots to a division title.
Grogan was the toughest football player I ever played with. You get in the huddle with that guy, and you better do something right or he'd call you out.
Quarterbacks are supposed to be these California attitudes. And that Steve, man, he would get fired up.
I grew up and learned that playing the game, you had to be intense. And just because I was a quarterback didn't mean I couldn't be intense.
That intensity included an un-quarterback-like penchant for contact.
If he got to midfield on a run and a big strong safety was coming up to drive him into the turf, he'd take him on and run him over.
He believed that quarterbacks should be football players, not wear a skirt.
A couple guys I played with used to accuse me of throwing interceptions just so I could hit somebody. But honestly, I never did that on purpose.
It was the accidental interceptions which raised the ire of Patriot fans. And their wrath over Grogan's inconsistency stung as much as the constant pounding from opposing defenses. The hits kept coming, and after 5 years and a terrific beating, injuries forced Grogan to limit his running and develop into a more traditional kind of quarterback.
My running ability bought me time to learn the passing game. And when I started having knee problems, I was able to evolve into a pocket passer.
I think he got more confident in his throwing ability. He got more the sense of the whole passing game a little bit, and I think age, and he wised up. He couldn't have a very long career, running the ball as much as he did.
Despite Grogan's success as a passer, he would lose his starting job to young Tony Eason.
Okay, let me give you another trivia question. Patriots really peaked in that they were winners throughout the 1980s. Really, they were a winning team, but they only really peaked in 1985. And during that era, they had a really good featured back. What was the name of that running back that really was the star of the team in that era? Craig James, yes, good job. Okay, I was waiting for that. I figured you guys were going to get it, and you did. You did. Good job. Okay, you guys are kicking butt on trivia question. You're 3 for 4. Anyway, let me get to this next video. Whoops. I want to talk about that 1985 season, by the way. Okay, here we go. It was a surprising season because a lot of people didn't, the Patriots were winners, but by that time the playoffs had expanded and you had to win a lot of games to get to the Super Bowl, and the Patriots did, and they won 3 games to get to the big dance, including this one against the New York Jets.
10-yard gain. And the clock is down to 1 minute and 28 left in this first half.
What a money player Craig James is. Good receiver, good runner. Earlier complained I wasn't getting the ball enough. Just give it to me. Let me see what I can do. And he responded for over 1,000 yards. A great effort to get out of bounds and stop the clock.
And complained vehemently. In fact, newspapers throughout New England carried his complaints, but did not throw head coach Ray McSally, but it worked because he did begin to get the football. And they have produced ridiculous come on now. For New England. Eason putting it out. Warren. Touchdown. Stanley Warren leading for late quarterback Russell Carter, a 36-yard touchdown play.
Just got burned, Marv. Bud Carson, the defensive coordinator, likes to blitz right here. The strong safety is going to be blitzing. That causes the free safety to come up in coverage. And the receiver right here, straight down the field, one-on-one with Russell Carter. Carter just activated yesterday. Man-to-man coverage. Good throw by Tony.
Okay. That was the wild card game. They actually had to win a couple more games to get to the Super Bowl, and they had to wait till Tom Brady arrived before they actually won a Super Bowl, because that year they ran into a buzzsaw, Jim McMahon and the Chicago Bears, who had maybe the greatest, along with the New York Giants of the previous year, maybe the greatest defense in the history of the NFL. That Bears team, they beat them 46-10 in that Super Bowl. But it was still a great year and kind of a breakthrough for the Patriots to actually win that game. Now, my slideshow is not sliding very well. Who knows what would have happened had Drew Bledsoe, who was also a pretty good quarterback, not gotten hurt and allowed Tom Brady to actually take over. And there's a kind of an unwritten rule in sports, not just in the NFL, but you don't lose your job to injury. But when you lose your job to Tom Brady, I guess it's legitimate. I mean, I guess it's justified, because what happened was Bledsoe got hurt, and then when he came back and he was healthy, Brady had established himself as a tremendous quarterback, and it really hurt Drew Bledsoe, emotionally and mentally that happened. But he couldn't argue with it, especially years later when Drew Bledsoe was winning Brady was winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl. There's no way Bledsoe could complain.
The 2001 season was barely underway when Drew Bledsoe suffered internal injuries from a brutal hit by Mo Lewis.
Did you realize when you got hit how serious that was?
No, I couldn't think straight then. I had on top of the internal thing, I also got my bell rung pretty good. Really, my insides didn't hurt until after the game, but then they started to hurt pretty bad. There were some touchy sequences when I got to the hospital when I was under, where they actually, for a while, were considering opening my chest up to try and find what was wrong.
You have to realize how close he came to death, okay? And that's a fact, because I wrote the stories about it. I talked to the surgeons involved. I talked to the Patriot doctors. You're a very lucky guy that he's alive.
Just 6 months before his injury, Bledsoe had signed a 10-year, $100 million contract extension with the New England Patriots. Now he was sidelined and forced to watch as his backup, Tom Brady, excelled. When Bledsoe returned to uniform, he found that his backup was now the starter.
To have a guy come out of nowhere and play well is the worst nightmare for a guy in that position.
With Tom Brady at quarterback, the Patriots became the surprise story of the 2001 season.
There's an unwritten rule. It's called you don't lose your job in case of injury unless you lose it into somebody that's better than you.
Listen, there's very little loyalty in the NFL anymore. There really isn't, and the way things change with free agency, with new players coming in, hey, if somebody's on the field, they're doing your job, and they're doing it well, then hey, look out. Don't go off the field. Hey man, if you're hurt, do whatever you can to stay out there.
My job is to make the decisions for the football team, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the best decisions I can for the football team. That's what Mr. Kraft's paying me to do, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the decisions that I think are the best for the football team. T-E-A-M as in team.
Called upon, I'll be ready to play in this game or any game, and that's the way I'm approaching it.
I know I would have handled the situation a lot differently. There would have been a lot of bleeping going on in my interviews.
Everybody talked about this season about how composed you were, how businesslike. Now, if I was to go to talk to your wife and say, well, how did he act at home? Would she say the same thing?
She got to hear some of the stuff that nobody else got to hear, I'm thankful that I have her to turn to.
If I was in that situation, I don't know how I could have dealt with it. When you're the quarterback, you always feel like I've had a big part to do with this game. When you're the backup quarterback, you don't even feel like you're on the team. You feel like you're a fan. I didn't do anything to help our team win. You always feel that I'm just taking up space.
Okay. Now, let me give you your last trivia question. Tom Brady really only played with one superstar wide receiver. He made Edelman a star. He had Gronkowski, of course, at tight end. But what was the name from 2007 to 2009? He did have a superstar wide receiver. What was his name? Randy Moss. That's right, Randy Moss. Hey, give yourselves a hand. You guys did great on trivia. 4 out of 5 on trivia. Well done. Well done. Now, I got to tell you, NFL Films is very protective of their game films. And it's very difficult from the 21st century forward here, from the last 20 years, to get game film off of YouTube and that's allowed to be used in programs like this. So it was tough to find. You could have a whole program of Tom Brady highlights. I could go 2 hours and just do Tom Brady highlights, but obviously it really can't be found on YouTube. But I do have a couple here that I did want to show you. This one, let me get over to it. Okay. This was Super Bowl against the Panthers. And, the thing with Brady was you gave him, if they're down, they're losing with 30 seconds left, and the kickoff goes to the Patriots, and they need a touchdown to win it, you were like even money or even beyond even money that they were going to win the game. It was absolutely phenomenal what he was able to do in the clutch, and that's what, it's not just his greatness as a quarterback, his accuracy. He didn't have a lot of mobility, but his accuracy, it wasn't just that, it was his clutch play. He just, he was phenomenal. And there were a lot of debates before Tom Brady came along. Who's the greatest quarterback of all time? Joe Montana or Johnny Unitas or whoever. There are no debates anymore. There really aren't. Tom Brady, has won 7 Super Bowls, and he's the GOAT. What they call the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT. And I don't think there's really that much debating about it anymore. But anyway, here's a little highlight of his that it is, like I say, hard to find from Super Bowl 38.
Tom Brady is in tremendous rhythm. Don't give him a chance to make a play. And make Adam Vinatieri come out here and take a long field goal, a really long field goal to win the game.
Boy, you have to wonder, is it in the cards again for Adam Vinatieri, who has not had a sterling night here tonight? He's missed a 31-yard field goal. He's had a 36-yard attempt blocked. Brady looking at a 3rd and 3. Time, throw, has his man inside the 25-yard line. Deion Branch made the catch.
New England gets his spike. They were expecting Carolina to play coverage. Here's what happens. He goes down here. The corner stays up, and they throw it in front of the safety. Good job, good read by Tom Brady. Look at the gap in between the safety and the defensive corner, and Tom Brady makes the perfect throw.
Deion Branch, 10 catches, 143 yards, and a touchdown, and there is the man, Adam Vinatieri, in his 8th season out of South Dakota State. He kicked the game-winning field goal here in Houston back on the 23rd of November. He kicked the game winner in the Super Bowl 2 years ago to defeat the Rams. 41 yards. Ken Walter will hold. And we get a timeout. And Vinatieri stands in at 0 for 2. You know what? It don't matter.
Well, that's right, and I tell you what, one of the toughest jobs in football, I think, is always the place kicker. Sergeant Hughes. The team, the fans, everybody expects you to make them all, and when it comes to big moments like this, there just cannot be any more pressure on football players.
How about that notation? The only misses Adam Vinatieri has had in his career indoors are all here at Reliant Stadium. The Patriots looking for a second Super Bowl title in 3 years from 41 yards. Looks good.
Well, I don't know what the Panthers were so distraught about. They still had 4 seconds left. But if they had Brady, they might have had a chance. Oh, my Lord. Anyway, Brady, you know, he ended up going to 15 Pro Bowls and winning 3 NFL MVP awards, which is crazy. And the one you just saw was his second Super Bowl. And when a guy wins 2 Super Bowls, you know, they say, well, you know, he's destined for the Hall of Fame. And here's a guy that he won 5 more, including 4 more with the Patriots. Anyway, like I say, it's hard to find. Go. There we go. This was an interview that was done after Brady had won his 6th Super Bowl with New England, and there was all these rumors that that was gonna be his last one, which it was, before he moved on to Tampa Bay. But anyway, here is Tom Brady talking about being the GOAT.
Now our ABC News exclusive, or Michael's exclusive, Tom Brady one-on-one with Michael, fresh off. I still can't believe 6 Super Bowls.
It's our exclusive. Okay, well, this together. But 6 Super Bowls, and I told him I didn't know what to say to him when I saw him. It was like seeing a unicorn. but I did have a chance to go down to Florida. I sat down with Tom at Disney World, as you can see there, and I joined the Super Bowl MVP Julian Edelman, and they were both down there together for the traditional trip to Disney World. And he talked about his 2 loves, football and family. Take a look. We all know your sixth Super Bowl win. That's amazing. So for you, I know it never gets old, but is there a way to even quantify how much this means?
I don't think, you know, for me, I don't know what to think, you know, other than I'm just blessed, and I know that I'll be giving back for the rest of my life, you know, and I know how hard it is to play in the NFL, you know, and I have so much respect for the players, the way the Rams played last night. I mean, they played so good on defense, and so proud of our guys for fighting, and just glad to come away with a Super Bowl win.
And we hear all the crowd, they're getting excited because Julian Edelman back there, Mr. MVP is getting them all fired up.
We grew up in the same area, you know, we grew up 5 miles apart, and that's where the quarterback-receiver relationship is so important. I've had that with, you know, all the receivers I've played with, and Julian, we've been together for so long, so I've shared a lot of life moments with him, not just on the football field, but off. And he's obviously one of my best friends.
And a lot of people, myself included, call you the GOAT. You know the GOAT, greatest of all time.
I don't even like that. I don't even like it. It makes me cringe.
Really?
It makes me cringe. I guess I take compliments worse than I take. I wish you would say you're trash, you're too old, you're too slow, you can't get it done no more, and I'd say thank you very much.
You're driven by criticism more than you're driven by success.
Yeah, absolutely.
You say you want to play 10 years. You're already past that point. 45. Do you think you're cutting yourself short? Why not 50?
50's too long. I think 45 is the goal.
How do you stay grounded?
I was a late bloomer. I struggled in college. I struggled at the early part of my career. Like, I was never the first guy chosen.
Yeah.
So I think that part is just, it's in me, it's deep, and it's there, and it's not going anywhere. And the foundation of where I was, who I am, where I started, where I'm at now is a reflection of so many things and situations, occurrences that had to happen.
Okay. There's been, there's no debate anymore about the greatest quarterback of all time, but there's been a lot of debate as to the success of the Patriots and who was more responsible for it, Tom Brady or Bill Belichick. Because the notion now is that Bill Belichick was the greatest coach of all time. Of course, the Browns got rid of him, but when they moved, actually they moved to Baltimore, but I think they were about to get rid of him anyway. Anyway, Brady, you have a guy like we talked about Edelman, okay, and some of these receivers and running backs, especially receivers that have had great years for the Patriots, and the way he spread the ball out to so many different receivers. And the fact is, and this is just my belief, that a guy like Edelman would have never had anywhere near the success with any other team in the NFL besides the Patriots and Tom Brady throwing to him. And of course, Bill Belichick and his offensive schemes played a big role in it too. So there's a lot of gray area there. People want to do a black and white kind of thing. Oh, it's Brady that made them so successful, or it's Belichick that made Brady so successful. It's really, there was a lot of gray area there, and I think there's enough credit to go around. And we'll see what happens in the future with the Patriots. Belichick has taken teams in the last year or two that haven't had a lot of talent, and they probably won at least a couple more games than they normally would have with another coach. So Belichick is still doing his job, and for Brady to go down to Tampa Bay and win a Super Bowl at that age is just cements his legacy as the greatest of all time. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the program over to you wonderful folks and see if you have any questions or comments for me, and I'll be glad to answer them. We could talk about the Patriots, or we could talk about, the Red Sox, or we could talk about mayonnaise, or whatever you guys want to talk about. Just raise your hand. Yeah.
If I got this right, Brady left New England because of not just the wham of when he lived in Florida, but he had some sort of falling out with Belichick. Was it that Belichick wouldn't offer him enough money, that Belichick, this is what I heard, thought that he really was a little long in the tooth, and he's not going to recommend it?
Well, it was, it was also a matter of, like playing out the string with two men, to one coach and one and the quarterback. I mean, they had just kind of played out their relationship, I think, and I don't know. I don't think that Brady felt like he was disrespected by Belichick or disrespected by the organization that felt like maybe he couldn't play anymore, because it was obvious that he could. I mean, his last year with the Patriots, he was still throwing for 4,000 yards. But there was some tension between the two, and I do think that did play a role in him finally deciding to go somewhere else. And Tampa had some really good players. They had more, I think, depth at wide receiver. Plus, at that time, the Patriots didn't have that level of talent that they had before offensively, I don't think, when he left. But, it's hard to say, because Brady always brought out, even guys with mediocre talent, Brady always, allowed them to rise to a higher level. So who knows? Brady could have won another Super Bowl with with New England. We'll never know. Yeah.
You think Mahomes will give Brady competition?
No. As far as Super Bowls, no, because he's already played, how many years. No, I don't. You know what? I don't think. I mean, Mahomes might end up with better numbers because he's so prolific as a passer, and he throws. He might end up having maybe more touchdowns or more passing yards because that's what Kansas City does, and they had all that offensive talent. Although some of it is left. But no, I don't think that. I don't think anyone. I can't imagine anyone in the next 20, 30, 40 years matching what Tom Brady has done in terms of winning. And that's what it's all about, right? And, his numbers are, obviously his numbers are great too. And Mahomes might end up throwing for more yards, maybe more touchdowns or something like that. But he's not going to be a better quarterback or have a bigger legacy than Tom Brady did. I don't see that happening. Anybody else? Well, there's one other thing I want to bring up. With the holidays only 4 months away, you might want to consider, and you heard this before, you might want to consider what you might want to get yourselves or your loved ones for the holidays. This book is the only book that covers the entire history of the Red Sox. And I covered Major League Baseball for 20 years as a sports writer, and I won more than 45 awards as a sports writer. I had to pay the judges, but I still won the awards. And I autographed, this is 25 chapters, I believe, 25, 24, of the greatest and most interesting teams and players and events and moments in Red Sox history. It's the only book that covers the entire history of the Red Sox. And I autograph and I personalize all my books for free. And I want to let you in on a secret that you already know. My autograph adds 3 cents to the value of this book. So you can buy this book for $20 and sell it for $20.03. So there you go. If you want to leaf through it, I'll be here for another 10 minutes or so if you want to leaf through the book and take a look at it. If you don't, then I'll be out of here in about 1 minute. But thanks for coming, folks. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the library inviting me again. This is the second time. I don't think I've ever done 2 library visits, the same library in 3 days. But I appreciate your support. And you guys have a great, yeah, go ahead.
So what do you think about the Red Sox now?
I think the Red Sox have had a better season than a lot of people give them credit for. They're still on the outskirts of the pennant race. When I saw on opening day that Corey Kluber was going to be the opening day starter for the Red Sox, I thought they were doomed. Their pitching staff was completely doomed because he was a Cy Young Award winner twice with Cleveland, but he was done. And obviously he proved that. He was just done. I'm like, there's just no chance. But the Red Sox always seem to come up with some hitters, whether they're free agents or by trade or whatever, like Verdugo and Justin Turner and, of course, Devers. And even after the Mookie Betts left, they still have a good hitting team, and they have to because they're playing at Fenway Park, and you can't get out hit in Fenway Park. And they got a couple of young pitchers. That Bayo kid, I think is pronounced. I like Tanner Houck, but he seems to be hurt a lot. But anyway, if they ever had a real good, solid, starting rotation, I think they would compete with the top in the AL East. But they just really can't seem to, since the Roger Clemens and Pedro Martinez days, and when Chris Sale's always hurt. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But if they can sneak into the playoffs somehow this year, and they're going to have to start winning real consistently to do that, that would be a real accomplishment for them. But I love the Red Sox. My dad took me to Fenway Park when I was 10 years old, and I'll never forget it. It was a great experience. I've always kind of liked the Red Sox ever since then.
Now, you mentioned you live in the Hartford area.
West Hartford.
So is it 50% Yankee fans, 50% Red Sox fans?
I think, from what I've been told, Red Sox Yankees in Connecticut goes north to south, split in half. So the eastern half, is like one team, and the western half like, and there's a lot of, some discrepancies there. I mean, I don't know, but I think West Hartford, where I live, is more Red Sox than Yankees, but I did do a program about the Yankees history there in West Hartford, and I'm going to be doing one on Red Sox history coming up at a library. So, I think it's both, and this turned into a series. I did the first 2 books I did were the Indians, now the Guardians, and Red Sox histories, and then the publisher liked it, so he had me write books on the Yankees and Tigers and Cubs and Mets and so forth. Now I had to hold my nose when I wrote the Yankees book because I like the Red Sox, but I'm not a Yankees fan, I wrote it anyway, and it's a tremendous history of the Yankees and the rivalry. I'm actually doing a couple programs on the rivalry between the Red Sox and Yankees, so that'll be fun. I haven't done that yet. Anybody else? Questions? No, because there's historical precedence to the Yankees and Red Sox because actually the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry is probably the greatest in American sports. I mean, you could talk about the Packers and Bears in football or whatever, but the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry is the best in American sports history. Well, yeah, I mean, the curse of the Bambino, which was for 86 years, there was that curse when the Red Sox sold Babe Ruth to the Yankees, set off the Yankees dynasty, that lasted 41 years, and Bucky Dent and, Aaron Boone and all this stuff. I mean, there was, when the Red Sox beat the Yankees in 2004, first team ever to come back from 3-0 down in a playoff series, that was a real breakthrough. That was wonderful,
Do you think it's lost a little bit of its cachet, the Sox and Yankee rivalry lately?
Yeah, it's not quite the same. Yeah, it's not. Well, they're second last and last in the division right now. So that takes a hit, and I think they need to have some kind of showdown in an important playoff series or something like that to kind of revitalize it a little bit. But no, it's not quite as intense as it once was. And players in general, baseball players, athletes, are not as intense about rivalries as they used to be because they're all kind of sticking together and the union and all that kind of stuff. And so it's not, it's not as intense as it once was. But I think if the Red Sox and Yankees ever play another ALCS, the feelings will be real strong again. Anybody else? Okay. Well, anyway, I take cash, credit, or check if you want to take a look at my book. And I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much, folks.